Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm going to review the new Rogue today, and it's another Marvel issue one. And if you've been following me for a while, you know Marvel issue ones very rarely fill me with joy and anticipation of something amazing. I like the idea of comic books that carry on for a long time. I like continuing narrative. I like the fact that if we get a change of artist or writer, it should still just carry on with the same story, even if there's big events and stuff happening outside of the comic book which affects the overall shared universe of Marvel or whatever. You can just carry on telling the story. You don't need to keep doing an issue one. There's a couple of times where I'd like books I've loved have carried on for a long time. Miles Morales and Poison Ivy being two at the moment. I was terrified that once a creator jumps off, probably going to be the writer, that they're going to do another issue one, and it just feels unnecessary. Let things play out. So, with that little rant out of the way, you're probably thinking, well, sure, he's probably not going to be that enamoured with Rogue, and I've got to be honest, if I'm going to judge a book by its cover, I had another mark against it. David Nakama, I believe his name is. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm not a huge fan of his style. It's kind of soft, both lines and colours. And we have a chance to have a femme character on a cover of their own issue one in an action pose kind of thing. And it looks like that was maybe the intent. But honestly, it looks like if that's a punch coming, it's not great. And even if she is, she's also got a big smile on her face and big bright eyes, and it just doesn't feel like an authentic kind of pose. Now, thankfully, I actually read the comic book. Didn't base it all on me just not liking Rogue issue ones, or sorry, Marvel issue ones, or me just not liking the cover. And it turns out, within the first couple pages, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is actually kind of good fun. The first proper look we get of Rogue in the comic is her mid-flight, just punching out a giant monster, and there's something about the way the figure is posed in mid-air that gives a sense of not only the heaviness of the impact that she can deliver, but also how she's having to move her body when flying, and how the physics of applying pressure when there's nothing behind you will cause pushback. It all looks very, very well thought out and really good action-oriented kind of stuff. Colouring is still a little bit too just Marvel in-house for me, and if I'm completely honest, by the time I got to the end of the issue, as much as I was thinking the artwork is pretty good for a Marvel book, my opinion of Marvel in-house style is not particularly high. Now, all that being said, if Erica Schultz writing it, and I feel like this is the reason why, if anyone's going to pick it up, that would be why. Because I've read a few books by her, she's really, really good. I've enjoyed damn near everything she's done. Even if it's not necessarily something I've like committed to on a monthly thing, I've enjoyed it enough to recommend it to people if they're looking for something along that kind of thing. And here we have this fantastic paced story. It starts big, over-the-top monster fighting action at an airport. We have an introduction of some characters that I'm not that familiar with, but also introduction of the relationships between these various characters. Quite nicely, when we see Rogue kicking ass, Remy is on the ground floor going, there's my lass, and she's just like, dude, we're at work. Which I really quite like that relationship they have. Some of the characters I don't know well enough to get much of a read on them, but I feel like they're not the most important parts of the story. Yes, there is some, like, Rogue is training the new generation of mutants, and I like that, but there's an inciting incident that happens during this big fight, which leads her down a path where she has to figure out what's gone on in her life before, when she's in the whatever of evil mutants. I can't remember off the top of my head. And it's kind of nice to see this story play out the way it does, because mostly what we get is her struggling to remember what's happened. And I like that for a number of reasons. Number one, it plays quite well into her power set and how it affects her. Not just that, but also the various things that are being done to her as a result of that by people she either trusts or doesn't trust. And it just means she knows she can't trust her memory. But also, even if nobody's messed around with it, I like the idea that there's still always going to be bits of her memory which are not going to be 100% right, because, let's face it, human memory is fallible. This happens all the time. Look at any people who report things to police and have to clarify statements to the people watching it. People remember things that never happened, add things, forget things. The human memory is an unreliable narrator. And as I say, with everything else that's going on with Rogue's power set and how it affects her, it feels like this is going to be a really good starting point to look at how she's going to respond to memories of things she's done in the past. It's going to be a deeply personal story, I think. We're going to have an awful lot of looking at the morals of what she's done, both through the lens of who she is now and who she was then, and how she's managed to justify doing things like hanging out with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and still has that edge to it, even when part of the good guys, if you want to call them that. I feel they spent just enough time in this first issue getting to the crux of it while never taking anything off the gas. It is still action-packed, it is still good-looking, it is still full of character moments. And I think it could be a good series to jump on if you want to give something like this a try. And that is higher praise than I thought I was going to give a Marvel issue 1 today. That's it for me for now, though. Until I see you all again, look after you, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.